Oh, yes,
No,
ma'am.
we can't.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
LinkedIn, people hardly hear me there because of technological challenges. Amila, are you there?
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to check it.
Okay.
The audio works, so we can continue.
Okay, good. Yeah, and if you don't mind, once in a while, you can check in there. People might have questions, so we can, pull in those questions into the conversation here. Yeah. All right. So we're looking at the supply chain career roadmap today. For those of you who are joining us on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. So I want to quickly talk about our network, supply chain industry network. Is a network of immigrant professionals in supply chain operations and project management. And we help the professionals in our network with job search, mentoring, and networking resources to help them integrate successfully here in Canada. Yeah, if you are just joining us for the first time or hearing about our group for the first time, we actually have over 1,000 professionals across Canada in our network. If you are not being in our network before, you'll need to connect on www.supplyjobs.ca. Supplyjobs.ca, that's with an S. Supplyjobs.ca. And we also have a WhatsApp group. So if you are on that network, you're able to join, you will bring you from there to our WhatsApp. You will see some instruction there. Once you join, you'll see some welcome messages where you can click on those links to request to join the WhatsApp group. But Abiola, I don't know if you also can share the WhatsApp group on the Zoom so that those who haven't joined our network here, our WhatsApp here can join, and also the www.supplyjobs.ca can be shared there for those who haven't joined yet. All right, so we're going to look at the business case for supply chain, the technology overview, case study, emerging roles, career development roadmaps. So I think, just give me a second here. Just want to make sure that I'm sharing the right one with you guys. Just give me a second. So I think I'm sharing with you the supply chain technology career roadmap. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit different. Just give me a second here. Okay, I'll get the right one now. So I'm going to drop this one. So for those who are pursuing supply chain career technology, yeah, I would look at that a little bit, but not so much to focus on the technology aspect for today.
There's a bit of some kind of noise when you speak. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's my own end of this.
Is there any other person hearing that, Abila?
I cannot hear the noise.
Okay.
At the end, it's actually very, it's looking like it's like starting again.
Okay, like a static sound.
Oh, okay. Probably your network because it was clearer than this before.
All right.
I think maybe your headpiece.
Actually,
That's
I'm
another
not.
thing
The
you can
interesting is I'm not using an earpiece. Okay, so you know what? Maybe let me check my LinkedIn here. I'm gonna switch it off. It's probably the one. Okay. So how about now?
Sounding like this like I don't know. Yeah, so it's just it's not we can hear you but it's not clear enough.
Maybe it's the network, actually.
Yeah, I can hear you guys clearly. I can hear you guys clearly. Let's see. So how about now? Is it still the same thing?
Yeah, it's still same, but I think you can go ahead. We'll have to,
Maybe network. Because if I try to switch to my headset, I wasn't using a headset before. I didn't even know I had an headset on. So, but if I switch to headset on now, it might actually disrupt everything. So let's just see how we can manage with it. Maybe it would improve. Like just like Abiola was suggesting, it's possible that it's a network situation. All right, so we're looking at the supply chain career stream. Let me see. I'm not sharing again on my. Okay, so we look at the supply chain foundation, the SCM evolution, how things has been changing over time. And I know for some of you guys, you have years of experience in supply chain. However, over time, the role seems to be evolving. So, but the whole thing that we're going to talk about here today is also to help those who are just moving from a different function, especially those who have, business management or finance experience. However, they are exploring the supply chain career, and this is also where your experiences will count for those of you who have years of experience in that. You can also share some of your own experiences with the things that we're going to be talking about today. So do not hesitate to share if you would like to make comment or even support some of the things we're going to be talking about today. Okay. All right. So I'm sure you guys in one way, shape, or form or the other, you would have actually had something to do with supply chain. But because the name in itself tends to confuse, so I usually would say supply chain is actually just the industry. And if you worked in the industry in one role or the other, you've actually been a part of one supply chain or the other, be it in the finance, be it in the pharmaceutical. Some of you are coming from the pharmaceutical background. Some of us are coming from economic development background. Like I heard, can't remember, was it Shegun there who talked about working for the group that helps the underdeveloped countries. So there are a lot of different experiences when it comes to supply chain management, but there is this little model here that we can use to really capture what is going on within our supply chain, be it supply chain of service, supply chain of products, sometimes even supply chain of experiences, like in the hospitality sector. It's what they create is actually experiences for people who are vacationing. So it's also a supply chain. So the supply chain that Sarah Project works in for example, is a talent supply chain. We're working in a supply chain where it's all about helping with skill acquisition or even helping with professional development. That is also a supply chain of talent. So this particular model helps to kind of break it down for us. so that we'll understand what is really going on with what we call supply chain. Well, we have primary and secondary activities that are going on in supply chain. The primary activities are really those activities that are adding value to either customers or end users, but then usually there is an input and an output. So this output and input could be tangibles, it could be intangibles, it could be technology, for example, it could be product, and it could be service. So this is coming through this model as shown here on the screen, and these are being value is being added to this input, product or service or technology or experience, whatever it is. And then through these primary activities, we then transform those inputs into an output. And the output here will either be, like I said earlier, an experience, a service, a product. And for a company that is working in this supply chain, we already know that we have several companies working together in supply chain. So it's not just one company as it was in the past. So you have this system of organization, people, technology, activities, resources, and all of those things that are going through this process, this transformation process. And then we're using this end product to then satisfy customers' needs. So this will be service, product, experience, as I said earlier. So the model here just tries to show us the primary activities and also the support activities that we have in our supply chain, regardless of what our supply chain is. This will be the fundamentals of it. So the primary activities, as you can see here, is inbound logistics operations. When we say operations, that could be manufacturing operations, depending on the transformation activities. That could be any type of operations here. For our own supply chain, operations could be event management. It could be training development, so that is all operations. And then, of course, when it comes to logistics, with the emerging supply chain, the logistics today, if the product is not a physical product, is actually technology that is delivering those logistics today. And then, of course, there is marketing and sales, and then there's also service. So when we say service here, we're talking about customer service. So it comes back to the fact that whatever industry you're working in, these primary activities will be happening. Just mention any industry that doesn't have these activities going on, and these are primary supply chain activities, right? But beyond the primary supply chain activities, let's say, okay, you have actually not worked in any primary supply chain activity, which I doubt, especially from the marketing and sales and the customer service point of view. You probably would have worked in the support activities within supply chain. That probably will be the operations processes, like maybe controls, policy analysis, business analysis, and all this type of things. These are processes that are supporting what we do in the primary activities of supply chain. And of course, human resources. That, of course, there's no supply chain out there that doesn't have a human resources function, because these processes don't do themselves, right? You need human beings to do them. And then, of course, technology is playing a very critical role, and as well as procurement. And maybe the question that might come to your mind: how come procurement is considered a support activities and not a primary activity? Of course, procurement is a function that supports all supply chain activities end to end. And this is why we would rather play as a support activities rather than a primary activity. So procurement is, from a business management point of view, is why it is put there, rather than being put in the primary supply chain value chain activity. So I hope we understand that. You see the definition of ethics there. I also see it as a network. Well, they call it a system. It's a network of people, technologies, information, resources that are involved in the value creation process in any industry. So let's just put it that way. That will be what supply chain is. If you have questions, just put your question in the. So here is another thing that I didn't talk about here. Look at the right hand side there. There is margin. Okay, so this is where supply chain management plays a critical role when it comes to the competitive advantage of any organization, because primarily the role of an organization is to generate profit, right? You agree with me? Well, we know there are other roles that they have to satisfy the customer, but in the process, they need to generate profit to be sustainable. So this model also speaks to that. In the right hand side, you see the margin that is being emphasized there as one of the outputs. Of course, other outputs is product, service, or whatnot. Okay, so that's that model. Now we will do a deeper dive into what actually happens. We've seen the primary and the support activities. So there is a model that APIX also is the organization that came up with this model called the SCORE model, supply chain operational reference model, which we use in describing the activities happening in our supply chains. And you can see these steps that are very, very critical in supply value chain processes. The first one is planning. So there is really no supply chain that happens without the planning processes. This would include activities that help us to be able to make forecasts in order for us to um, establish the demand for our products and services, so that we can put in place resources and capacity to generate supplies that we would use to fulfill those demands, right? So that is essentially what planning is. We can go into the details later. I'm not sure if this is further explained here. Yeah, I think it's not explained further. So aside from planning, which is talking about balancing supply and demand by crunching numbers, forecasting, establishing customers' need. This is where things like demand management comes in, supply planning comes in, S&OP, sales and operations planning. So all of this falls under the planning process in our supply chain, and it's very critical. Majorly, when you see our supply chains being disrupted, is pretty much coming from the planning area, majorly. And yeah, like we had in COVID, right? Now, the sourcing process, as the name suggests, essentially is then having had the demand, then um, how do you obtain, or how do you get those resources, those materials, to be able to make, or to be able to generate um, the services or the products that you are using to fulfill those demands that you have established. So this is another broad area of supply chain management processes. This is where procurement falls into. This is where category management falls into. Purchasing, procure to pay. Yeah, so a whole lot of things falls under this category. The whole goal of this particular process here is to acquire services, resources, materials that are needed to fulfill the demand that you have established in the planning phase, right? In order for you to keep your customers happy. Also, a major part of this is supplier relationship management, because you will need suppliers to help with those acquisition of materials, services. And then the making is they make its use here because in the let's say the original um, supply chain, or let's say the genesis of supply chain, which is we know where it comes from, is usually from the logistics realm, or it's from the industry realms, that is manufacturing. So that's why this make thing, because make, using the word make today, to me looks like it doesn't really capture this area, because make actually could also be project management as of today when we think about the technology, supply chains, right? So but we can use that as of today to just describe that transformation process that happens. So the transformation of those raw materials, those products that are being fed into our supply value chain or into our industry, and then converting them to um, the end product that the customers actually would need, or to the end product that we would use to fulfill the customer's needs as established during the planning phase, right? So this is what make is all about, and we know this is talking about the entire industrial process here. And this is an area where those who studied engineering will be more familiar with this type of processes, or those who studied industrial engineering essentially will be the one that will resonate most with this area. And then, of course, the deliver is having produced this, then we need to deliver it to our customers, right? And this is another major area, because this deals with the fulfillment process itself. You know, Amazon, it's one organization that had definitely mastered this particular area, and the entire Amazon logistics process is what we're talking about here, where you have warehouses across the globe, and these warehouses basically are used to organize products that are coming from customers, I mean, from suppliers, mostly finished goods, right? And then this is being moved through the downstream supply chain towards delivering it either to stores or directly to customers. So this is the deliver part. And then you can speak to that without mentioning the warehouse processes, from uh, the storing, retrieval, um, the technology that is being used in this entire process. If you use Amazon technology before, you see the fact that it's able to track everything from the beginning to the end. So all of these things is happening in the deliver area. And then, of course, the return. This also speaks to what Amazon does, right? If you are not happy with what they are delivered, you're able to return them back to Amazon's warehouse, where whatever they want to do, resell it or even actually junk it. So this also speaks to repairs. Okay, if you bought something like a vehicle, right, from Toyota or from the dealership, you can take it back there for repairs, and several other type of return processes. So this is also a huge part of our supply value chain. And enable, which I think it was something that was recently added, in the internet era, when it started disrupting the entire supply chain. But we realized that enable is speaking to technology, so all of these processes we've mentioned so far, technology will enable them. And we can't talk about supply chain today without speaking about the technology aspects of things, because technology really has pretty much um, enabled everything that we do in supply chain management. So this, I believe, helps us to further do a deep dive into what supply chain management is. But I don't know if anybody have questions, I know most of you guys really know what I'm talking about here, but those who are new and they're trying to explore career here is whom I'm really thinking they might have questions. And for you guys who already know this, I would also like to know if you have anything to add here. So just to keep the conversation interactive. Are there any comments?
No comment from my side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I want to add
Yeah,
to
I think
it.
we pretty much captured most of it. I mean,
Okay,
I don't
okay.
think I have anything else to add to this at this point.
All right, all right. Happiness, any question? I'm going to put you on the spot. No question? Okay, let's move on. All right, so this is talking about what has happened to supply chain over time and where we are today when it comes to supply chain management. A lot has happened. I mean, when we speak of supply chain, historically, we're talking about those days of even building of the pyramid. It's since then that we've had something we can actually call supply chain. As far as when human beings started creating stuff that could be as basic as food, there are definitely supply chain going on there, but of course, we never had that name. So we're going to look far back as when we can say that, okay, there is logistics, and logistics element here being that we are storing some products and then we're, delivering services or delivering products. So in those days of maybe let's say when Toyota started their business, maybe we can go as far back as then, you would realize that the supply chain processes when Toyota started out was mostly linear. Linear in the sense that they were the one that were really responsible for pretty much everything that they are producing in that context, because then they will be the one to manufacture the steel, all of the components, even the design. Let's start from the design of the vehicle, the Toyota product, the first Toyota product. So they were responsible for the design, the engineering, the research and development, to the point that they were also the one that developed all of the manufacturing, the industrial processes that they were able to use to build this in do I call it now, on large scale to start manufacturing this product. They were also responsible for the selling. So if you look back at that model that I showed at the beginning, we're just saying that linear supply chain is that type of a supply chain where end to end there is this linear step from one to the other, right? From the purchase, which is the procurement of raw materials or designs or whatever in this case, to the actual manufacturing, logistics, outbound logistics marketing. So Toyota was responsible for everything end to end. So this is what we call linear supply chain. So process at this in this level of our supply chain measures are not in place to actually see how all these different processes are performing. So, and also jobs and structures are based on traditional functions, not horizontal processes, right? So, this is the initial stage of supply chain management evolution. And then at some point, we were advancing in organizational structure. There are some uh, different types of research and development that was happening in the industry, where we became more organized, and structures and jobs are based now on processes. And then also the corporations started engaging with external parties. So there's some level of collaboration that started happening in the case of Toyota, where I mentioned that they are now starting to engage external parties, maybe even in the design um, of the product and the R&D. I do know that a lot of these guys actually have internal R&D. They usually don't outsource those. Um, but my point here is that companies started looking for expertise outside of their own walls, to engage and collaborate with other organizations so that they can become more specialized in what they do. An example that I can also give there is Apple. When they started, they were manufacturing themselves. They do the design and the manufacturing, but well, eventually they realized that they have to let go of the manufacturing processes. So they outsource it to another organization so they can focus more on what they do best, which is basically designing, phones, that are, top of the notch technology. So, and then they left the manufacturing aspect to those guys. And then let's move on to the extended. So extended supply chain is okay. So before we go to the extended, the integrated actually incorporated technology as well. So this is where technologies such as ERPs facilitated a lot of things that we did, like collaborating with these external parties, and also automating some of the processes that we have in our supply chain. So the extended um, is a situation where now we're scaling our supply chains across the globe, where there are hundreds and multi tiers of companies that are involved in our supply value chain process. So it's not a situation where we're just working with one or two suppliers. We have a situation where our suppliers are also having suppliers, and having their own suppliers are having suppliers. So this has become a sort of a network, which is really the modern supply chain that we have today. Honestly, because this is the scenario that actually led us the path of supply chain disruption when COVID happened, where it appeared that we didn't even know the suppliers of our supplier. So for these reasons, we didn't know if this particular supplier is affected in China or elsewhere, then we are also impacted because we don't have that level of cognition in our supply value chain as of that period. So we tend to be disrupted easily. So, well, while the extended supply chain offered its own benefit of having this kind of capacity that is multi-tiered in nature, it also exposed the supply chain to risks. And when COVID happened, it was easy for this entire supply chain be disrupted in this sense. So the extended supply chain can also be called an horizontal, customer-focused, collaborative culture environment where we focus on what our customers needs in a very proactive manner. And then supply chain at this point has really become a competitive advantage for organization. I think it was Apple's founder that said that companies are now competing supply chain to supply chain, meaning that if you are really going to be competing in the marketplace, it's really about your supply chain competing against the supply chain of the other company. So this like is an emphasis on the value, or let's say the contribution of supply chain to a company's competitive advantage. So this is still like the era where most organizations are in as we speak. However, there's an emerging supply chain that is called the cognitive supply chain. They call it different names. They call it adaptive supply chain. Essentially, this supply chain that is emerging is coming from um, the use of technology on steroid, in supply chain, where we have emerging technology like IoT, the Internet of Things, the blockchains, machine language. We have the likes of artificial intelligence that is now being leveraged in our supply chains. Where our supply chain becomes a self-learning supply chain, adaptive, resilient, and also an agile supply chain model. I mean, it's a stretch, right? Because when I look at a lot of supply chains in the industry today, we're still sort of working at the tools level. We're not quite there, where we see that there are tools that could help to get us there. But as far as the state of supply chain that we speak of today, I think we're still in the extended supply chain, not quite in the cognitive supply chain model as we speak. But we're getting there. I mean, just the other day, wasn't it? I heard of what's this organized? Tesla actually created a robot, that could do pretty much everything that human beings can do. Like this type of emerging technology is totally going to revolutionize what we're doing in supply chain. And yeah, I think it's going to make supply chain more interesting, is what I'm thinking, that rather than it being a threat to supply chain professional or supply chain management, I think it's just something that will definitely change the way we look at supply chain going forward. Supply chain, to me, as somebody who has practiced for a while, I've really realized that supply chain is going to be impacted by technology, and this is why I stayed, because I studied mechanical engineering, and then my first job in the industry happens to be a supply chain role, which I know nothing about. So I started researching about it then. And then one of the things that really encouraged me to stay in supply chain was ERP, because I realized that the ERP technology is like it's SAP, right? I saw that, well, if this is going to be something in supply chain, then definitely there's a place for technology here, and this is what convinced me to stay. After graduating from mechanical engineering, I happened on supply chain management. So today we are talking about the HCM 3.0 in terms of the the type of supply chain that we're practicing today. Things like demand forecasting, a single source of truth, which is ERP, right? And vendor managed inventory, where there's this collaboration with our suppliers, where because of the technology, we're able to collaborate even more effectively. We're able to exchange data seamlessly with our suppliers, which makes it look like just one unit organization, whereas these are separate entities working and collaborating together as one. So things like vendor managed inventory concept, which is the concept that Walmart actually created this concept, or let's say they started this concept. So when you go to these stores and you see all these products on these stores, it doesn't actually belong to Walmart. Guess what? It belongs to their suppliers. And what these guys are actually doing is they are renting the space on Walmart's shelves. So this is what we call VMI, meaning that Walmart doesn't have to carry those as their, inventory. It's the supplier's inventory. It's actually the same concept that Amazon is using as of today on their platforms. Like all those products, they are just creating the infrastructure for the suppliers to put those materials or those products on in their warehouses, whatever. And when customer places order for it, that's when it gets just transferred to the customer. So basically, Amazon is sort of playing like an intermediary role there. If you really look at it, because the suppliers are paying for the stuff on their inventory and the technology they provide to enable these products to be sold to the customer, and Amazon is just getting paid for those logistics services that they provide. So this is the concept here. Whereas if you go on, actually, it's very transparent on Amazon platform. If you go there, you will see that the name of the actual supplier is there. So, and this is the kind of interesting things that are happening in our supply chain today because of the technology that is implemented to help enable it. So challenges here, of course, technology capability. It's something that um, we cannot just speak of it as just the hardware or the technology that runs it. However, there are other challenges that comes with technology, like the cybersecurity challenges, the risks, the global risks that the global nature of our supply chain now portends, for every supply value chain. Volatile and uncertainties in the marketplace. This comes from different types of disruptions, and we've seen many of them lately, like the wars in Ukraine and Russia. These have direct impact on the materials that we use in our supply chain. So these are some of the things that, even though technology has a great way of making these processes very easy, but then on the flip side of it, there are those risks that we are also exposed to that we need to also manage proactively. So the SCM 4.0 is that cognitive one that we talked about earlier, where technology is playing a major role here. Uh, During COVID, when the industries in China were disrupted, right? One of the things that came up is the need for us to actually readjust our models to bring back those industries that were going to China because of the cost advantage, right? So, but then for that to happen, it means that technology has to really come into place. When I talk about technology, I'm talking about robots here, because that's the only way that those those industries can be scaled at a competitive advantage. I mean, at a competitive cost. So SCM 4.0 is what offers that opportunity for us to rearrange our supply chain with the help of technology and still be able to serve as a source of competitive advantage for our industries without necessarily exposing ourselves to those global risks across the globe. Um, where we can have industries back in United States, North America, in South America, regional supply chain without necessarily exposing ourselves across the globe. So technology is really going to play a very huge role here. So some of the technologies that are emerging is end-to-end visibility, transparency, and the adaptive model that we talked about earlier, and then also digital supply chain being facilitated by the Internet of Things and blockchain. An example that I could give from the aspects of blockchains, there's a project that was conducted at Walmart um, with Bison. So Bison is actually a company that is based here in Winnipeg, right? So Bison does the um, logistics for Walmart. Not every of their distribution, but just some channels in their distribution. And one of the challenges that they actually faced was reconciling the invoices that are being generated from Bison. So there are some challenges in terms of reconciling. Basically there's a plan. Eventually, the plan, of course, doesn't really work out must have been forecasted. So this would lead to the need to reconcile invoices, right? What this then means that if there is no technology in place to be able to handle this effectively, there are delays. The ERP is the natural, tool for that, but then there are delays that are always happening from this latent technology in place. So they had to implement a blockchain technology, which helped them to actually um, track these invoices and then to be able to automate the reconciliation processes, which drastically changed the game when it comes to the ability to reconcile the invoices that are coming from the third-party logistics, which is Bison in this case. So this is an example that I can give, but there are several examples of IoTs, which is very, very critical in the industries, right? When it comes to quality management and reliability of their machines, they need to have products in place to do repairs. So IoTs are integrated into these machines in the industry so that the data that are coming from these IoT tools can actually help in predicting when a repair part needs to be changed, when that part needs to be ordered to make sure that it is available when needed to do these repairs. So all of these things are very, very huge, and they are really transforming a lot of things. Talk about artificial intelligence as well. That's another level, right? Where these machines actually could, you may, repair themselves. And even correct things, based on, maybe algorithm and also other type of automation processes. I mean, this is a part, as you would imagine, that I like to talk about, but I mean, it's not something that we'll be able to exhaust, today. So we have another roadmap for, the supply chain technology. So, well, the challenges here is skills gaps. As we speak today, a lot of us are still using Excel. So, and we realize that that definitely represents a huge skills gap when compared with the type of technologies that are available in the marketplace. It's not only that, it's also the fact that our companies or the industries also do not have these investments, or let's say the capital, to invest in this type of technology. And this represents a huge capacity gaps as well when it comes to the ability for companies to switch over to SCM 4.0. As we speak today, one aspect of SCM 4.0 that we could also talk about is the cloud technologies, the likes of AWS, the likes of Azure, and we have companies that are still struggling to actually move to these subscription services because uh, even though one of the overarching benefit is that you won't invest um, in hardware, and you don't need to hire an IT, to move over to this new model of technology acquisition. There are still underlying challenges like the cultural issues that will come out of this type of situation. A whole lot of other things, and then talk about data management is also another issue. The fact that a lot of companies are sitting on dirty data that are not really useful because they have not been properly managed. And what does this mean for us? This means for us, emerging opportunities in supply chain that we've never thought of before will be the future of supply chain. I mean, talk about cybersecurity. There are huge gaps in these areas that portends opportunity for supply chain professionals. I mean, I'm talking about it as if this is something that are already, available opportunities in the market, yeah, they are there. Usually the challenge is that we don't have the skills to actually move into these niche areas that are emerging within supply chain. And this is why we're talking about this topic today, so that we can start to become aware that these opportunities are there. You just need to have the right skill to basically access these opportunities of more fulfilling roles, not because it's supply chain, but because they are also paying you commensurate with the effort that you are putting into your work. We do a lot of work in supply chain, as you would really have realized. However, there is still a compensation gap, a huge compensation gap. When you think about what we do in supply chain and what we are being paid. So the traditional roles is the ones that I will talk about first, for especially for those who are just approaching newly the supply chain career. Supply planner, as I mentioned earlier, planning being one of those major functions. These guys are responsible for translating demand plan into inventories of supplies to ensure that we're able to meet our customers' demand. So planning, like I said earlier, is a huge area in our supply value chain. So demand planners are also, this is a different one. They are responsible for all forecasting activities. So basically, they are the ones that gets to listen to the voice of the customers and then be able to pass this information to operations to help in supply planning, and also for capacity planning and a whole lot of other things that needs to happen in the back end, for production activities. And then we have the production planner. So the production planner are converting all of this information coming from the supply planner, but the demand planner, converting it into a production plan, whereby this information is then used to convert the materials into the end product. So supply planning, demand planning, production planning, these are roles that we have in the supply chain management. All right. So the other ones here, remember I actually created these roles based on the supply chain operational reference model. So the first thing we talked about was planning, supply chain operations reference model. The second thing was source. So this is related to the sourcing roles. So purchaser, sourcing analyst roles, identifying goods and services that are required to fulfill our customers' needs. So as you would have imagined, the supply planner could also work as a sourcing analyst, because their roles are kind of mirroring each other if you really think about it. They might not really be involved in the actual negotiation, but their roles helps to plan for all of the activities that is happening in the purchasing function. Also, all depending on the type of purchasing. If it's for consumables, it might be a different thing, but if it's for assets, then that might also be a different type of function or sets of skills that are required for that. Then we have contract specialists. Basically, these guys ensure that there's no value leakage in engaging third parties, suppliers. Remember, we talk about the extended supply chain where we're working seamlessly with third parties. This particular role plays a critical role in ensuring that value is delivered in compliance with the established contract with those third parties, with the suppliers. And then there is also vendor relationship manager, or we call it supplier relationship manager as well. Their role is basically relationship management, ensuring that the third parties that we're working with, where the collaboration effort is working, and it's also helping to further enhance value creation within our supply chain. Okay, so the third one here, which is the deliver, right? I believe I'm following that model. Okay, so we skipped operations. So operations, basically, as you would know, it's more or less manufacturing. So some of it we've covered under the planning area. So here is basically we're talking about the inbound and outbound logistics. So these are the roles: logistics coordinator role, inventory coordinator role, and then also warehouse manager role. So all these roles will help in the fulfillment process, delivering either inbound logistics where it's about bringing these products and materials in, and then the outbound, which is about moving the finished goods to the supplier, and the inventory coordinator dealing more with replenishment of materials, and then also storage of the materials, making sure that we the inventory are accurate, okay, for fulfillment purposes. All right, so this is what our roadmap looks like for those who are approaching this career. So there are some courses we call the foundational courses. The foundational courses will include case studies to help us understand. Sorry. So to help us understand the processes and the foundational knowledge that is required to work in supply chain. As of today, what we do is we've actually partnered with ASCM. So ASCM is the Association for Supply Chain Management to offer all of these courses. So this particular roadmap here is focused on those who they've had experiences from other industries, and now they're approaching supply chain career, so they need to bridge that gap from what they have learned and what they need to learn going forward. So the first step really is the foundational courses and also the certificate courses in the foundational knowledge of supply chain. So again, this is foundational courses and certificate. So we have the planning certificate, the warehouse certificate. We also have procurement certificate, supplier relationship management certificate. So all of these certificates are addressing one or two other areas in our supply chain, depending on where you really want to explore. But what I normally would suggest for people who are not sure yet of which one they really want to do is to take the foundational course. So the foundational course touches on everything that I've talked about so far. But if you have done some type of functions in supply chain in your previous role, you can actually move ahead already to the certificate program. So this could be procurement, this could be planning, and also this could be supplier relationship management. This even could be supply chain technology. So we have certificate for all of these areas under the AHCM platform. So we, in terms of the timeline, this is something that could be accomplished within 3 months. So we've actually put buffers here. For example, our procurement certificates is something you can get done within five weeks. That's a month. So, but there is a buffer here. Life happens. People might be, juggling some other stuff. So that might make them not be able to get this done sooner. And there's also self-study option, but we do study group. Somebody wanted to ask a question? Is there a question or? Oh, okay. So yeah, so that's for the foundational courses. Now, if you already have a substantial experience, like many of you guys, you have 14 years, 13 years, even if it's just 5 years that you have in supply chain practicing, I think you should actually approach the certification, the industry certification. Now, here is the thing: the industry certification is more expensive. That's the one thing with the industry certification. But we know that when it comes to Canada, um, this barrier of Canada work experience and Canada qualification, because that is also a barrier. They want to see Canadian qualification, they want to see Canadian work experience. Is one of the reasons why I would suggest to those who already have careers, experience in supply chain, to actually attempt these industry certifications, because it's a social proof. Because the reason why they're asking you for these other qualifications, the Canadian qualification, is because you don't have that social proof that you have a foundational knowledge of supply chain. So even if you had years of experience, and I've seen people who actually approach these certifications and they are struggling. Okay, so and that's the thing, we can say we have 14 years, 15 years experience, but yet we have not really covered end to end those knowledge areas. For me, for example, I worked in supply chain for 8 years back home. I work with Shell Petroleum, and honestly speaking, the 10 years of my career, I actually didn't know anything about planning function. Didn't even know that it existed, because all that this was a world of procurement that I was entirely, like I was involved with. And I didn't even know anything about planning. But planning definitely is a huge part of what is going on in supply chain, right? So, but for somebody who is doing procurement, if you remember, procurement is in the in the secondary activity. And this is why a lot of us who practice procurement didn't actually have any clue whatsoever what is going on in the planning world. So, again, this will help you to have that social proof that is required to establish that indeed you have what it takes to practice in supply chain. And then you also have a global industry certification backing you up, especially if you are approaching like a mid-level role, not an entry level role. So entry level role will be those guys who are taking these foundational courses, those who are moving from another function into supply chain, those who have 3 years, 5 years, and they are trying to get their first shot at an opportunity here in Canada. Yeah, I would say take this foundational course, be it procurement, whatever certificate applies to your own area of specialty. And for those who have years of experience, you will take the certifications. If you don't have that already, this would be CSCP, CPIM, CLTD, or even CTSC. CTSC was introduced recently. I've also acquired my own CTSC as a transformational professional in supply chain, or supply chain transformation professional, which is my own specialized area. So internship. So internship is an add-on to our job search support service, where we want to use this as a way for you to bridge that gap of Canadian work experience. Everywhere you've been going, they've been asking for Canadian work experience. I think internship is a great way to bridge that gap. So we offer this as part of the um, supply chain career roadmap. So these are the different roadmap courses. The foundational one, supply chain foundation, as I said earlier, this is the one that you can take. Somebody who has no clue whatsoever about supply chain and you're trying to approach your career here. Let's say you have zero experience in supply chain. This would be a good one, because you can take the foundational courses in all of the different functions, and then maybe that will help you to learn better which one you really want to pursue. And then the supply chain planning, like I mentioned earlier, supply chain relationship management, that's also one. There's public procurement. This helps you to bridge the gap when it comes to working in the public sector. because in the public sector is a different law entirely that controls, the activities in the public sector. We call it the competitive bidding law. So the competitive bidding law is not something that other countries have. What we have in the other countries is called the English common law. Okay, that is the English common law is what actually is the foundation of the contract laws in every other countries, especially those who were former British colony. What you are using there is the common contract law, English common contract law. But in Canada, what we have is competitive bidding law. So in Canada, we tweaked it. Okay, so it used to be the common law, English common law in Canada that basically dictated the way business, I mean, as it contract law works in supply chain transaction. But couldn't remember the year. At some point, the Canadian Supreme Court messed things up. Okay, so they decided to intervene in the English common law, and then they created a different type of law entirely. So this is what we call the competitive bidding law. So if you are coming from a different jurisdiction, especially Africa, Asia, Europe, you need to have grounding in the public procurement, which is the competitive bidding law, in order for you to understand what is going on in that space. All right, I'm skipping. So I talked about these ones already. We have 14 weeks certification for this CPIM and CLTD. I think we adjusted them to 10 weeks. There's a buffer here for you to take the exam. It's group studies that we've been doing recently. So the CSCP certification is ongoing as we speak. The next one will be in February or so. Yeah. So, but you can do self-study. So what I actually would encourage is for you to enroll in the self-study and then start working it until when we have the next cohort, which will probably be in February. So that's what I will encourage you to do for those who are looking to attempt the CSCP certification. Like I mentioned earlier, the same thing goes for the CLTD. Same thing goes for the CTSC, which is certified in supply chain transformation. That's the CTSC. So internship, I mentioned internship earlier. So in serial projects, we have two sets of services. We have the training consulting, and then we have the consulting services. So whichever area you are interested in, if you're going to be consulting in the area of training, we have guys who are helping with those. And then also we have those who might also be working in the area of consulting services, which is procurement outsourcing and implementation of ERPs. And then of course, project management. So these are all areas where you can intern in. All right, so I think that's it. That's the end of the presentation. So I would like to know now if there are questions from you guys.
Yes, this is an excellent presentation. In fact,
Thank you.
covers a couple of my questions that I really wanted to ask. And I have to thank you for the initiative, because like those wondering how some of us will have been getting a soft landing. Because only the information is assuring that okay, it's a good step towards transitioning into the supply chain space in Canada. So now, regarding the certification and training, these are things I'm actually interested in, especially the internship, because I know it will give one a good overview of what is really happening here. There are different, because of course when you take it, you will see the difference between what you have been doing before and what the Canadian sector really wants you to do.
Yeah.
Because we are always too full of what we have known. Sometimes until when we go out and say, oh, these are this is what they need us to be compliant with. So I think this is good, and I think I will write it regarding all the things I really would like to take on regarding this certification and also the internship opportunity. So thank you. I think self-explanatory, I understand everything that you said so far. Thank you.
So happiness. Any other person there who is new? Is there anything that might not be clear that you would like to get more clarification on? Mhm. Right. So maybe what we can do here, make this a little bit more interactive. How about I give you questions if you don't have questions? uh, Anybody want that?
Yes, I think it helps us to interact with each other.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Okay, so let's do this. I have some questions here. At least that will help to also further support the things that we have been reviewing so far. All right, so I'm going to share another screen here, if you don't mind. So one thing I will also encourage us to do is, if we have maybe specific questions that relates to your, like this is a question that relates to you in particular, and you don't want to share such information here, yeah, you can schedule a 15 minutes phone chat with me, and then we could talk about more about your own specific situation, and then we could take it from there. So let me share these questions with you guys, and then we could see what we can do with this. All right. So here are some questions here, some interesting questions here. So these questions are in different areas. So here are questions related to procurement certification. You can just tell me what you will choose in terms of your own correct answer. So the first questions here says, what is a primary benefit of obtaining a procurement certification?
I would love for me.
Mm. Okay. B, improve negotiation and sourcing skills. Exactly, yeah. So actually, this particular certification, the ASCM Procurement Certification Study Group, we're starting November 17. That's when we're starting our next cohort. We just finished a cohort. The main focus of that particular certification is negotiation and sourcing skills. But aside from just obtaining those skills, like it will also help to enhance your, or let's say to boost your job search. Again, this is a social proof, and so that will definitely help your chances. Because, like I always tell people, um, you see, today supply chain has become so popular that we are churning out a lot of students. I also teach, right? Last year at Red River College where I teach, they actually told us that like they're getting overwhelmed with people who are enrolling in the supply chain courses. So my point here is that if you have 13 years experience and you come from a different country, okay, your challenge is even becoming much more um, you know or let's say the issues you are particularly experiencing when it comes to Canada is becoming even more challenging because it's becoming a competitive marketplace where guys are coming out of school every day with this supply chain diploma, degree, and all of that, and they are competing with you who actually have experience. So the strategy for a lot of immigrant professionals is to, you know, acquire, uh, like you have these years of experience, right? So our strategy mostly is to go for entry level because they are asking for Canadian work experience. Now, even that entry level role now, you realize, it's becoming more competitive because these guys are coming out with diplomas and all this stuff, and then they are competing with you. So you need to step it up. It's one of the reasons why you'll need to get the certifications. All right. So next one, which procurement certification is most valued in the Canadian supply chain industry? It's a good one.
And I have two questions. Wait for my turn.
Yeah, the question number 2, right?
Yes. I said, can I go ahead and
Yeah. Go ahead.
okay. So I looking at the questions, I don't know. The green belt seems like something different from what should be discussed. And I know the PMP certificate also aligns,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm very sure the accounting is not part of it. Probably the supply chain management professional C, option C.
Okay.
I want to be corrected. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to procurement certification most valued in the Canadian supply chain industry, is the supply chain management professional certification. And you should also note this question. It said this Canadian supply chain industry. Now, it has its advantage in the sense that a lot of industries recognize it as the de facto supply chain certification. However, for an immigrant professional, you might have a different set of strategy because one of the goals that you have is to break into the industry sooner. Now, the supply chain management professional is not something you can obtain, say, within 6 months or 1 year. Sometimes even take 2 years for some people. So, the one thing I always encourage professionals who are looking to explore this path is to just be enrolled in that program, meaning that in itself, for you as an immigrant professional exploring, actually integrating in Canada, might want to take on the enrollment first. And that should be enough to support you on your job search. However, you want to back it up with other certifications, like, say, for example, the CSCP, which you can actually get within 6 months. Again, I'm saying this because your goal is you're trying to integrate, you're going to get a job as soon as possible. You don't want to wait for the program that will take you 3 years, 2 years. Like you can't wait like forever for you to integrate into your career. So, what I've advised most of our colleagues who are trying to integrate sooner by getting a job in a career here is, of course, you can take the procurement certificate, all right, and then back it up with a PMP. So this, with the idea that it's because of the timeline, you have a short timeline within which you're trying to break in here, and it's not something that has to take you like forever. Now, having said that, you might enroll in the supply chain management professional, like I mentioned earlier, not necessarily to go all the way, right? And I'm also saying that with the idea that you might actually be the SCMP designation itself might actually be paid by your employer. So if you have paid it all the way already, which I doubt anybody have the funding for that. If you have paid it already, then your employer won't pay for it for you. Okay, so again, the goal here is you want to break in sooner, and then you want to you want to focus on the low hanging fruits. So the low hanging fruit for a supply chain career professional here is enrollment in the SCMP, enrollment with emphasis, taking the procurement certificate, and if you can afford it, back it up with PMP, right? So that is a kind of thing that I would suggest for anybody, especially for those of you who have the 13 years, 14 years of experience. And I know some of you already have the PMP anyways. So which of the following is a key focus area in procurement certification? I think this one should be an easy one.
The first
Yeah,
option.
the first option. Yeah, it's only Shegun that is contributing here. Where are the other guys?
Lisa was about to kick in.
Hey, I think that's A.
Oh, okay. So what is one key skill a procurement certification provides? I think he's just repeating the answer, but I mean the question, but I'll leave it to you guys. What is the one key skill a procurement certification provides? Yeah, supplier relationship management. So as you would notice now, when it comes to procurement certification, yeah, these are the key things that you will learn there: supplier relationship management, negotiation, and also sourcing strategies. Now, questions on data analytics and visualization. So this is also one of those courses that is on the roadmap, especially for those who might have gaps in in data analytics skills. So how can data analytics in Excel and Power BI benefit supply chain decision making?
B.
Um, by visualizing and analyzing trends in supply and demand. All right, that's a good one. Yeah, visualizing, because exactly what this tool is helping us to achieve. Which of the following Excel function is critical for data analysis in supply chain?
Would that be the VLOOKUP?
Yeah, VLOOKUP. Yeah. So VLOOKUP is actually one of the tools that we use in doing visualization in Excel. So because when you generate supply chain data, it could go to 1 million lines. Now, if you want to make decisions off of this data set that you have in that Excel spreadsheet, you can really go through all of those lines, right, before you be able to get to some decisions on what you want to do. So you will use things like the VLOOKUP to actually generate some queries that you can quickly put into, like a visual chart that you can now see, or even a table that you can now see those insights or those trends that you then will be able to use to make your decisions. So VLOOKUP definitely is one of those tools. What is the recommended pathway for newcomers to learn Power BI?
So you can do a self-study through free online resource and tutorials.
Okay, because the emphasis here is on newcomers, right? So the emphasis is for newcomers. So there are resources there on LinkedIn And we also have resources that you can do on self-study. But the good thing about these resources that we have is that you will have labs, all right? And these labs, you'll be working on actual data sets that will help you to be able to apply all these tools. We have a data analytics visualization training also coming up. If you something that you feel like this will help you, you can let me know. So data visualization in supply chain help professionals too.
That would be A, improve forecast and decision making.
All right. So using all these different tools that they mentioned earlier. So basically, forecasting and decision making is in the demand management planning area, but also in other functions in supply chain, like say for example category management, would need these tools for these type of things. Even in sourcing, we do spend analysis in sourcing, right? So this is also a tool that will help us in that area. Okay, let's move on to SAP. SAP training provides you for which roles?
B.
Yeah. So end user and consulting roles in supply chain. So this is one of the do I okay. So this is one of the trainings that we also um, recommend, especially for those who do not have ERP skills. SAP is the leader vendor of ERPs, and for this reason, we recommend it strongly. For those of you who have not really used ERPs before, because if you have looked at these job postings, most of you will see that they will always have knowledge of SAP or skills using SAP. And our training also focuses on not only just end users, we also have the consulting skills as well. So basically, functional consulting skill sets, where you can actually implement SAP for these different business processes in the materials management area, be it the RFQs, how do you set up it in the back end in alignment with, let's say, the business processes or policies of the companies you are implementing it for. So this is those roles that we are trying to encourage our colleagues to move into going forward, because these are the roles that actually pays, you know, remunerations that are commensurate with our efforts in supply chain. But a lot of these opportunities are actually going to guys who just did IT or that did information management in school, because we are not stepping up to the plate. The skills that are in demand within the industry as of today are digital skills. And for people like us who have on the background in supply chain career, we have the subject matter expertise to actually be better in those consulting roles. But because we do not have the digital skills sets that are required to perform in the functional consultant roles, these opportunities are going out to people who even just left school and what they did was information management or computer science or some other type of database technology diploma. So for us in supply chain who have the subject matter expertise, we need to step up to the plate. And this is some of the trainings that we would recommend for those who would want to transition into the supply chain technology careers. We have a different roadmap entirely for that. So I just wanted to plug that in there. So I'm going to leave it here for today because we have just 15 minutes. And actually, we have our SAP FI ongoing. It's going to start at 1 p.m. And then also the SAP MM is also starting at 4 p.m. So these sessions are ongoing, and if it's something that you would like to discuss further, don't hesitate to reach out. Biola, if you are there, can you all put in the link? Like, if you would like to talk. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So if you can have the link there, you can schedule a 15 minutes call with me. If you can put it on the link thing as well, that will be helpful because we don't know who might also be watching from there. I would like to so have a chat. So that's it for me for today. For those of you who will be interested in the procurement certificate session, we're starting November 17. The data visualization also will start in November. We don't have a date yet, but it will start in November. And we have the PMP also scheduled for the first week of November. So those are the things that we have currently scheduled. And if you want to discuss further about these things, um, reach out via that link. Next week.
Sorry, just to interrupt a bit. I just want to find out, is there a link to join the SAPMM training that is scheduled for 4
Yeah.
p.m. today?
So the guys who are in the training are just concluding. If you are interested, you can join the next cohort. Starting November 2nd. Next cohort will be next week.
Okay.
Actually, next week.
Okay.
But I can share the link for the enrollment with you if it's something you'll be interested in.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll share with you. So thanks guys. Hopefully session helped one way or the other. This is basically like to help with especially those who are just exploring the career. But I hope that for those who have been in the career as well, benefited from this conversation. Thanks everybody, Biola, for helping us with the back end stuff. And thanks for all those who have joined on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Thanks Odunayo Koforola, Rosemary, Shegun Opeyemi, and Happiness. See you guys next week. We are welcoming newcomers next week. However, I'll be in Calgary, so maybe that will be something that Abiola you have to coordinate. But we'll see. I'm actually thinking of having this as an in-person, if possible, in Calgary, if we're able to make that happen. But nonetheless, the minimum will just have like an online with the help of Fabiola and the other guys in the network. So have a great weekend, guys. I'll see you next week. So for those of you guys who haven't put in your LinkedIn, please do so. We want you guys to also connect, take it beyond just here. You never know who have access to opportunities you don't know about. Share your LinkedIn URL, and we'll leave this thing on for some few minutes before we close it for today. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.